Meeting starts at 7 o'clock. So you can start recording.
All set.
Very good, thank you. Call to order, all members are present. Hear from the public. Do we have anybody here from the public to speak? Okay. For Selectmen's briefing, I'm going to keep this brief because we have such a chock-full meeting. Just a reminder about the budget referendum next Tuesday. I encourage you to get out and vote on our town budget. And that will be, the hours for voting will be from 12 p.m. noon until 8 p.m. So we're not starting at 6 in the morning, we're starting at noon. Okay, hear from boards, commissions, committees. Don't think we have anybody on for that. Acceptance of minutes of regular meeting of May 3rd, 2021.
Move to accept.
And who was that? That was Roger. And a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Minutes are accepted. Old business, discuss reopening strategies, town facilities. I'd like to do a quick presentation and see how you feel about it, Bill and Roger in particular. So give me just a second here. I have to go to here. And share my screen. Is our host still on there? Who do we have? We have Michael.
Yep.
So I can share my screen.
All set.
Thank you. Let me
Try it again.
And which screen? It's this one. And I'm going to start a slideshow. Again. Okay, can you see and read?
I don't have anything on mine.
Can anybody else see it?
No.
All right, so let me do it again. I thought I was sharing screen 2, but I'll share screen 1. And let's see. Can you see a presentation?
No.
Nope.
All right, Michael, what am I doing wrong?
Are you sharing screens or are you sharing windows?
Ah, thank you. I was share. It says screen 1 and screen 2. I thought those were my windows.
Yeah. Sometimes it's easier if you just share the actual application.
Share the application. Oh, you know what? I know what I'm doing wrong. Can you see?
Yep.
You can. Good, thank you. My apologies. I challenge you to do better than that, though. Okay, the COVID reopening plan. We have some updates that I would like to share, or I have some updates that I'd like to share with you. Bill and Roger, I'd like to get your feedback on it and see if we can make some decisions. Town office building, moving it back from July to June 27th with an office hours change. Wednesdays from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. is what we want, what we think would be good office hours. It takes us up to 7 for people who work during the day. It would be for the town clerk, tax collector, assessor, selectman, and building office. The building office, we're still working out the details on because we have a person that would have to be here. One of our contracted people would have to be here in the evening. So that's one part. Mask required, temperature check. I will read from, let me find it here. I just got the news. The governor just updated the protocols today, this afternoon. It says, let's see. Businesses, state and local government offices and events may choose to require universal masking. So it is allowed. We definitely have people who are choosing not to get vaccinated in our town. So, what we also have is we have employees here who have children at home who have not been vaccinated. And even though the parents may have been vaccinated, they can still carry the virus back to their children. So, that is a concern. So, and also on the masks being required, says, unvaccinated must continue to wear masks, but you can't ask anybody if they've been vaccinated. So, we would just have it required overall, and we would wear them as well. Changes to the assessor's office for public computer use. We figured out a way to make changes that would not, that are moving some things around to create distance. There is already a shield that's about this eye by eye, where she would stand and she would talk with whoever was in her office. So we don't think we need to do a whole lot more than that, but changing things means that we will have to contact Savage Systems, I believe, to change our network thing for the printers, network outlets. Meeting with the first selectman in the lower level conference room. We prefer that people weren't walking around up here. Gun permits, transfer station permits, we can continue to handle those outside the building. That doesn't seem to be a problem for anybody. And it does keep people from wandering around. Encourage use of efficiencies established during the pandemic. I mentioned this before, that we have created some real efficiencies out there. And we also are looking at potentially getting something that will hold brochures that we can put in our main lobby, that will have processes people can follow. It's actually something you can put those on, a person can walk out with it to make it so that they can become even more self-sufficient. Okay, we certainly have our Dropbox. And full opening July or August, depending on the June experience and our COVID vaccination, COVID stats and our vaccination stats. I haven't checked today, but I can tell you that as of May 8th, and I think I might have already told you this before, Ashford has 59% of the population in town has had one vaccine shot. I don't have the stats for fully vaccinated. I haven't been able to get those. So I continue to work on that. And then we need half doors on 5 of our offices. And that is to contain, whoops, sorry, I don't mean to do that. Back up. To be able to maintain distance, which we don't have today in those offices. And so we need to do some work on that. Comments, gentlemen?
It looks like a good plan to me, Catherine. The only thing I would ask is that the new hours for Wednesday, that, you know, we see how that is accepted by the public, and revisit that in 30 days to either confirm those hours or to make adjustments if we deem necessary back on feedback from our townspeople.
Right. What we do have is a situation is where we have people now. Before we didn't have as many, but we have more people who actually are employees that work out of town. So they end up having to go home and then come back. And that's just something to keep in mind.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. I mean, that's been the case for a number of times.
Sorry?
I said I am aware of that, and that's been the case for a long time, at least for a couple of our staff.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
But,
I heard somebody else. I heard somebody else making noise. I understand what you were saying. Okay. So, and we definitely, they're eager to be, you know, they are eager in serving the public. So the employees are going to do whatever they can to do a great job. And so anyway, I'd like to go with this plan at this point, if that works for you, gentlemen.
I have no issue. Do you want a motion to that effect?
I don't know that I need it. I just need to know that you're comfortable with it.
I'm comfortable with it, and I'm very happy to see that recent situations have let us improve the date that we're going to be opening. I think, what's that, a month earlier than we originally thought?
And you're saying because of what the governor and the CDC are saying?
Correct.
Okay, and I hope, and I hope people will understand that. We've done the best we can to move us along, and we're just doing a little bit more here. Okay, now going to Knowlton Hall. Tomorrow, Thai yoga will start, and Tai Chi will start, I think, the day after that. And masks are required. What we're looking at are and we're almost through, we'll be through the end of May very shortly. And those are 6-week classes for them. So other activities, June.
Now,
July,
is the Board of Selectmen required to attend those?
to-
I'm being facetious. I'm sorry. I know Roger and I were real
only
anxious.
if I can, I'm sorry, but Bill, if you're gonna do yoga, I'm gonna come and watch.
You'll have to pay.
So, yes. The other activities, June, July, it's going to depend on the number of participants for these activities. It's also going to depend on our COVID stats and our vaccination stats. Let's see how it goes. Access should be based on priority. Oh, I didn't finish my typing here, but town-oriented activities, from my perspective, should be given the higher priority. When I say town-oriented, I'm saying not birthday parties, but Cub Scouts, or, things that are less celebratory and more groups that need to get together. Any meetings that we might need to have in there. The library has to hold some things in there and make sure that we get those prioritized correctly.
How about boards and commissions meetings
Well,
and town committee meetings and that sort of stuff?
so I'll tell you what Governor Lamont has just said about that. It says, oh wait, I've got it on something else here. Hang on. Zoom meetings can continue. They're not requiring in-person meetings. Well, we're not ready for it. I'll give you an example. If we have an in-person meeting and we can fit with some aspect of distancing or whatever, 14 people in the room or 20 people in the room, and the 21st person shows up, we have to cancel the meeting because we can't accommodate them. So if we do hybrid meetings, which require quite a bit of technology to do, that is where you have in-person and you have essentially Zoom, but you have to have equipment so you can see what's going on and hear what's going on. And certainly from my perspective, if you have something where you just have phone in, they can't see anything that's going on, and you can't manage the meeting very well. So I've reached out to Mike D'Amato, was really great about helping me get information from what Willington has done. Willington has a different setup than us. They have more of an auditorium kind of room where you can have meetings, and they have like a big screen kind of contraption, TV, whatever you want to call it, on a cart, where it can be positioned so you can see whoever's sitting at the board table, for example, and anybody who wants to speak can come up with a microphone or whatever. They're in the picture so that people can really it can be a valuable kind of a meeting. And that's pricey to do. So we need more time to figure out how we're going to handle those kinds of situations. Wherever we can, if we had a town meeting, perhaps we could get to having it in person. It will be awkward, and we don't have all the answers yet, and I'm waiting for the governor to come out with some more information as well.
Good.
So,
In the large conference room there at the office building.
Yeah.
Downstairs, don't we have a camera set up that we could do a live mode?
not working.
Okay.
And it's old technology. I actually checked that out with Michael Gardner and trying to figure out, what we could do. And I don't know that we can just upgrade that. It's from a long time ago. I don't know when we got it. And
Well, I know that the equipment, when we did get it, I forget it, whether it was from Yukon or it was a hand-me-down.
I might have been from Decon,
It was a bit aged when we installed it there.
right? So I did look at that. So the technology piece is a tough one. There's also, if we were going to go to completely, when we do go to in-person meetings, I would say when and if we go to entirely in-person meetings, I would really like those meetings recorded for the public. Wherever we're holding them, and most times it would be in the downstairs conference room. And the reason I say that is because it just gives the public that much more access to understanding why the decisions we're making are being made. You don't get everything from the minutes, and people have gotten accustomed to coming into our Zoom meetings and getting to see it in action. So what you're thinking about that?
Well, I agree, and I think that's why the Board of Selectmen in past years actually supported installing that equipment downstairs,
Okay.
with the understanding that the potential was there to do live broadcasts.
Yeah,
I mean, we'll have to look into that, because that then takes other requirements, particularly under FOI. I believe if you film it, then you have to have that filming available also to the public. But those are things certainly we can research.
which is what we do now.
Yeah.
With our Zoom meetings.
Yeah.
And it is great. I mean, I can literally go back and watch other boards and commissions and see what was really talked about in more detail. Okay, so and also at Knowlton, we need to make sure we've got cleaning going on, because there are bathrooms there and everything, and people going in and using them. The other thing too, Bill, you may be more familiar with this than Roger, only because of having to live with it for so many years, is that many times when groups have used Knowlton Hall, they have not cleaned properly. They were supposed to clean up after themselves, supposed to clean the tables, that kind of thing. And, I've been in there before, and it was unbelievably grody in terms of them not doing that. And so I would like us to hold whatever groups are using Knowlton accountable for making sure they clean up after themselves. If they have an event and they're using the tables and the tables are not clean, I wouldn't be as likely to say, hey, yeah, go ahead and do it the next time.
No, I agree with that, Catherine. I mean, minimum, and it's probably even stepped up more so during getting through this COVID situation. I think that has to be the case, but minimum, they should leave it the way they find it.
Yes. Yes. Okay, so you good with this, what I've got here at this point?
I'm fine with it, Catherine.
Thank you.
Good.
Okay, and the senior center. So, and not only have I been talking with Kit, but also she and I met with ASCO to talk through some things with them. We were at one of their meetings, and they understand, how we're trying to roll this out in a manageable way. So we had already talked previously about having these inside group activities. Now we're talking 10 people or less, because you can do, if there's some distancing, certainly with masks. Everybody, I can tell you, everybody at the ASCO meeting was saying absolutely masks, even though they've been pretty much vaccinated. So it was very interesting. Tai Chi in person, we're looking to have start on the 23rd. We'll have Tai Chi that's done online before that, but on the 23rd, we believe we could start having it in the senior center. Okay. As you know, before we mentioned the outdoor picnic, that's the senior center anniversary. That'll be on June 18th. It's kind of nice to know that masks will not be required since it's outdoors. And then other regular and any new programs post-June, based upon our June experience, instructor availability, and the instructors and participants' comfort levels. So particularly the instructors. And the other kinds of programs are dime bingo, bingos, Zumba, low impact aerobics, hairdresser, foot care, and bus trips. So bus trips probably being the very last. And bingo being second to last in all likelihood. And dime bingo, typically, they've had 20 people there. So that's one that would also be probably on the end of it. But definitely trying to, get the programs going. Just quite eager to do that. Yeah, quite eager. So, and we're working on making sure we have a really symbiotic relationship with ASCO. They have a number of things that they do. We also, I believe Chris submitted the thing to get the locks changed there. When we talked with the ASCO group, we told them that we were going to do that, and they were all for it. They know that there are some people who have keys to that building that have never turned them in or whatever, and they will make sure that we have individuals, appropriate individuals from that group and anyone else on staff that need to have the keys.
Are we gonna maintain the same master on that, Catherine?
No. No,
Okay.
you will get a key. You'll both have keys, so you can get in. We'll make sure that we have, no, because too many people have the master key.
That's even scarier.
I know, and so, yeah, have a moment with me. That's what I had. So, and it's not so much too many people have it, is we're not totally sure based upon so much time passing as to whether they still have it or not. And let me think if there was anything else with that. No, I did forget to give you an update, just so you know, and I have to be thinking about it because of the senior center. The lighting at the Pompey Hollow Park is dim at best. We did have a situation where the lighting went out completely Tuesday night last week and got the electrician out Wednesday afternoon. And he was able to get some of it restored a bit, but he can see that it was not set up correctly. It's just shoddy. And so not all of the lights came back on and they're all really dim. So he has gone out there again. We had Public Works take out the big lift so he could get up into the top of one of the lights, take it apart, and figure out what the right components should be to have responsible lighting out there. Plus, we did have the pole at the senior center got knocked over, the one with the light, and we're looking at having double lights there. So what we're doing is getting a costing for all of that and see how we can manage that. I expect it'll be a project of some kind. So, and we'll look at whatever discounts we can get or rebates we can get from Eversource. But right now, we just need to make sure we got lighting working okay so that it's safe for people. Because once we start some of these programs with the seniors at night, I don't want them falling in the parking lot, not being able to see. So, all right, are we good with this one?
Looks good to me.
Yeah, what we have done is really we're letting Kit drive it. She's there all the time. She knows what it is. She's working with ASCO, so I think we can have a pretty good pick up the pace a little bit in there. Okay, that's all I have in terms of reopening. Thank you very much. And now let me get to someplace else. Let me get back to the meeting. I don't want to share. I'm not sharing anymore. Mike, are you still on?
I am. We can see your blue screen.
Okay, you want to take it so you can't see my stuff at all? Could you help me?
Sure.
And get back to the agenda. So we have Mark Robbins on. Oh, wait, let's see. A continued discussion regarding the Howard noise complaints. Okay, give me a sweet moment here. A couple things. I reached out to town council and conveyed what's been going on with town council. And if you give me just a quick second, I want to take a quick look at. And he was very good at giving me some information. It was not the best news that we could get, but it was something. So what I told him was we have a serious noise problem in the area of Ashford that appears to have escalated into harassment. We do not have a municipal noise ordinance, have started researching the process to create one, and will need legal help. We are researching remedies that are available to the town to address this problem prior to adoption of a noise ordinance, because we know people are suffering out there. So what he came back with is the Board of Selectmen should start to promulgate a noise ordinance with support from legal counsel. We'll need DEP and town approval of the ordinance, which we already knew. He said the neighbors affected by the noise problem should be encouraged to hire a lawyer to bring an action, a lawsuit, or with an injunction against the property owner. They will need hard evidence of the problem and clear descriptions of how they have been damaged by it. A lawyer would recommend decibel readings at various times of day and night. So what I did was I also gave him all the specifics that I had on this, plus I spoke with Lieutenant Palmer at Troop C. I will tell you that over in 2020, they made 8 calls out to the 7 Howard Road, all for loud music. And in 2021, they made them, there were the calls they made were on the 14th and 15th of April. After the 15th of April, I did ask that the neighbors kind of slow down the calls, because we were trying to get the homeowner to work with them and didn't want to, we wanted to de-escalate the situation. Lieutenant Palmer has indicated that he didn't realize, they didn't realize until he went over the calls with me, that the pattern of abuse wasn't obvious, because the officers who responded to the calls varied so much over time. They didn't put the pieces together. So so what they're doing is they're patrolling the area more often. And they are, if I understand correctly, the neighbors, when the abuse happens again, they will be calling the troop, and the troop will come out and they'll record the problem, and we'll continue to make the case for this is an ongoing problem. This is not something where the person doesn't realize that their noise is too loud. So
Catherine, how many times did you say they've been out there in 21?
in 21, only twice, although that differs from what I heard from at least one of the neighbors in terms of calling to make a complaint. But I'm not sure that the police came out with every complaint. So I don't know why the numbers are only, the 2, he only had the 2 in April. And maybe he didn't have anything for May because they weren't recorded yet. We do know that at one point in 2020, the music was not a concern between June 8th and November, but it's my understanding that the person who was making the loud music or putting the loud music out there had been in an accident. So that may have slowed it down, but then it picked right up again. So I've communicated to at least, bear with me, I want to get back to seeing you, to at least one of the neighbors who is also in touch with the other neighbors about what I discovered and what our legal counsel said. Our legal counsel said there'd be no value in sending a certified letter from the selectmen because we have no teeth. We have no teeth to enforce anything. It would be like, you need to cease and desist, or this will happen. And we don't have an or this until we have a noise ordinance. So talking about the noise ordinance, I would like to ask Jeff Silversmith, Richard Williams is here as well. Jeff, you have, if I understand correctly, you and Mike D'Amato have actually looked at this. So can you give us if I understand correctly, it's not a P&Z type thing, ordinance kind of thing. So could you share with us?
Sure. Thank you, Catherine. I've spoken with both Mike and his experience of this in various towns. I also spoke with Ken Slater, our legal counsel from Halloran and Sage, and both are in agreement that the noise ordinance issue is an issue that comes about not from zoning standpoint. It's really from a municipal area. One of the things I did find in doing some research was a report from 2014, and it's a noise ordinance in small municipalities. And it shows common areas. Long and the short of it, I'll try and be concise. I know you have a long agenda. They took North Stonington as a median of about 5,300 people, and they looked at the 15 towns by populace above that number and the 15 towns below that number. And what they found was only 8 of those towns had a noise ordinance. And of those 8, 4 of them were on one single ordinance because they were in the Torrington area health district. So effectively, there were 5 noise ordinances. And there was some commonality between them with the provisions they were dealing with. And the provisions they dealt with had to do with definitions, obviously, land classifications, such as industrial, commercial, residential, and the difference between an emitter, someone who's making the noise, and a receptor, someone who's hearing the noise. They talked about noise levels. Excuse me, they all had noise levels in common and times of day and night that allowable noise was identified. The measurement techniques of using a calibrated instrument as well as a trained person in using the instrument. They also talked about potential exemptions and variances that could come. And variances sound a lot like the potential variances for zoning when it comes to zoning appeals. It needs to be either a activity that doesn't endanger the public, or compliance would be an unreasonable hardship for the applicant. And the last item that was in common was enforcement. And I can tell you, besides the fact of fines being levied, that the enforcement authorities usually included the police chief, the first selectman, board of selectmen, and board of directors. Each one of the 5, well, put it this way, each one of the 8 towns that had 5 different zoning ordinance, or excuse me, noise ordinance, all of them had a resident state trooper, or one of them, the largest, Middlebury, had their own police force for part of that enforcement that we talked about, the teeth that I think Catherine brought up earlier. So again, I think our hard part on this is going to be from a noise ordinance standpoint, to have the both the calibrated and trained member. I mean, we can always hire somebody for this, but usually by the time we've hired somebody, they're not going to show up at 2 a.m. when the noise is taking place. But I do think if we can have some type of a noise ordinance in place, I think East Granby maybe had the closest thing. It wasn't very involved. It was somewhat limited. But if we do have a noise ordinance in place, then that gives the police something to stand on, a foothold, and then they're showing up with a badge, showing up with lights flashing, showing up with the big pointy hat, is a bit more intimidating than a letter from the Board of Selectmen.
And
Yes.
what we've had, if I understand correctly, what we've experienced, the neighbors have experienced, is that the police show up, they have the conversation, and then what the neighbors are told is, we can't do anything because you don't have a noise ordinance. So they can't even do that aspect of intimidation.
There's nuisance
Roger?
ordinances. There's other things too here.
They could charge him with breach of peace.
Yeah.
Actually,
there's
I did
other
talk.
avenues, lots of other avenues.
I did talk with them about that. There are certain ways to do that and certain ways to do that. And I'm a little reluctant to put that all out here because I don't, I want to make sure that the people who are being affected, they are aware of what those things are and that can be used. But the lieutenant is working that through. And he's very mindful of the fact that these people are going through this. So I just didn't want to advertise all of that. I hope you understand that. And the neighbors, you're making your case because they have to have hard, how did they put it? Hard facts, hard evidence. And the breach of peace, it's a little dicier than you might think, so. Okay,
Yeah, Catherine, this is Dick Williams.
yes,
Jeff and I spoke briefly before this meeting on this subject.
Yep.
And we concurred that this was something that was landed firmly within the Board of Selectmen's purview.
right,
I had looked at this several years back when we were experiencing the potential for a wind turbine farm at exit 72. And we were wondering if we could use a noise ordinance as a way to kind of hold that at bay. And what I found at that point in time is that a town cannot impose a noise ordinance greater than what's specified in the state statute.
correct,
However, the town can put in place the means for enforcement of that ordinance, those statutes. So I think what Jeff was referring to with what Granby has done and some other similar towns to Ashford, that we could come up with a wherewithal that would allow us to have an ordinance that would be a means of enforcing the requirements that are set forth with the state ordinance. It would, I think, give the state trooper a better leg to stand on when he would show up at the door.
Mhm.
But it would require a little bit of thought, and then also more thought as to how we would go about monitoring and calibrating that noise that was taking place. It could be done on a one-off case when someone's playing a loud stereo, but if someone is routinely creating noise night after night after night, then you could set up and record that noise and then see if it exceeds the state mandate. But without a town ordinance of how you would do this, we're pretty much, doing it on an ad hoc. So my recommendation would be to elicit Mike D'Amato, town council, and come up with what might be a good model for the town to adopt and have the Board of Selectmen adopt that.
Would you agree, Jeff?
Yeah, Richard and I did go through as to where the source should come from. And I do want to say that the examples that I gave earlier, each one of those provisions fell along the lines of DEEP. All their standards, all their decibel levels, all of even the variances and the exemptions fell along what is allowable through DEEP. Nothing more stringent than that, because there's likely the commissioner will not approve it, and they have to approve any type of noise ordinance.
So let's see. Do I have Candy on here? Candy, you and I talked. I gave you additional information that your group, that the neighbors can work with in terms of establishing the pattern of behavior. And no one can say the person making the noise cannot say they're unaware of the fact that they're disturbing their neighbors. So when we get to that breach of peace thing, Roger, that's a factor in that. And the more times that this happens and is recorded in terms of recorded with the police, et cetera, especially going forward, the better off you're going to be. Anything you can record yourselves one way or another will also help you. Yes, Jeff.
Just one thing, and I know, Roger, you mentioned nuisance.
Yes.
We, in doing some of our regs and talking about some of the activities going on as to what's allowable, what's not allowable, not so much from a noise standpoint, but we tried to get the word nuisance defined and put in, and both from our legal counsel as well as a number of groups, including the Ag Commission, kind of came out of the woodwork and let us know that, a nuisance definition, or using the word nuisance in a lot of any of the reg language, has a lot of applications, maybe too many applications, or people will try to use it on too many things. So it was recommended that a definition of nuisance from our legal counsel, a definition of nuisance would not be an easy road to go down, and try and get agreement and all that, and not have it, people apply it in situations where it shouldn't be applied, even if it is specific to, I think we were trying to apply it to short-term rentals or something like that. But as soon as we had a definition in there, they could run with that definition elsewhere.
Okay. And again, back to the neighbors. When someone does something repeatedly and is aware that they are bothering their neighbors or whatever, the police do consider that a nuisance. Okay, as long as there's that pattern. So, and anytime you want to call me on this, please don't hesitate. I know you'll probably want to be working some things through, and we'll continue working with this, trying to get to what we can put together for a noise ordinance. So, do you have any questions while I have you here?
Do you have anything?
No.
No.
No. Know that we
I mean-
sympathize with you. I don't know if it's getting worse or what at this point.
It's just random times, and it's sometimes all day long at random times. Sometimes it's 5 minutes now it's 15 minutes.
Yeah. And considering that you live 150 to 500 feet away, and you can hear the words, the lyrics, that's pretty
Yeah.
good. And also they want to know if he is continuing to race up and down the road on his motorcycle, screaming his obscenities and flipping people off. They want to know.
He's been revving the bike like 30 minutes at a time, like just over and over and over again too.
Call the police.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then please keep me informed.
Oh, we will.
Can we move on to the next topic now? Everybody good with that? Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, presentation by Mark Robbins of MHR Development regarding zero renewable energy credit, DREC, program status and strategy. I believe that the two selectmen received information on this, some background information. Is that correct?
I did.
Did you pick up yours, Roger?
Yep,
Okay.
I have it.
All right. So if you would, Mark, could you kick us through?
Sure. All right. Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Hear you fine.
So I'll speak a little bit about this, then encourage you to ask me questions as I've tried to figure out a way to perfect debunking all this utility jargon since the programs were launched by Eversource about 10 years ago, and we're in the 10th year of it. And just want to talk to you a little bit about how I recommend we move forward with our application. And I promise you that once we secure the RECs and successfully install the solar system, it'll be very quiet. In fact, it should be silent. So there will be no noise implications on this one. So MHR, my energy consulting firm, focuses on developing and implementing clean energy and energy efficiency projects for municipalities, nonprofits, commercial operations, and identifying and exploiting the various federal, state, and utility incentives so that we can reduce the total invested cost of systems. And we've become very focused during COVID on not just oil, gas, electric, and water conservation, but also on indoor air quality measures. And so we look forward to getting involved with you as you pursue the deep energy retrofit of the Ashford School. So as a precondition to all of that is solar. And prior to installing solar, obviously, there is a consideration of re-roofing the building so that once you install the solar system, you don't have to worry about removing it. during the term of the power purchase agreement. So at a high level, the incentives available for solar, there are 3 of them, and 2 of them are utility driven, required by the Public Utility Regulatory Authority. And the third one is a federal tax incentive. And I'll just speak a little bit about where all that stands. But the program in Connecticut, whereby the prevailing utility company, Eversource, is compelled to incentivize installing solar systems, results in a 2-part application. One is in requesting a net meter. And these are important things to think about now, because this program is going away and the legislature is figuring out what to replace it with, but it probably won't be as beneficial as the current incentives. So the 2 parts are net meter, which means that you will apply and we will secure approval to install a 2-way utility grade meter. And that means that you don't have to invest in batteries, and you don't have to be upset when your solar system on a school is having its peak performance day, but the school is closed, because you'll actually be sending that power back to the grid and physically, literally reversing the meter, and you'll get a credit that that school or that building will draw from in future hours, namely in the evenings or the winter months. And that credit trues up annually. And it's very simple once you install this 2-way meter, and that program is going away. So by virtue of this year 10 mid-size renewable energy credit application that we are going to submit on the behalf of the Ashford School, you will receive that 2-way meter. And the next piece of it is the RECs, or the renewable energy credits. As you might remember that these great monopolies, the utility companies, were, quote, deregulated a few years ago, which means they can no longer both own the power plant and the distribution of power, or the power lines. They had to pick one. So they chose that they wanted to be in the transmission business, not in the generation business. So when the regional authority required that they start to implement some clean energy, some renewable electrons in their program, in their grid by 2020, 2030, and so forth, they had to do this by proxy, because they're not allowed to own the energy asset. Eversource can't own solar plants or nuclear plants or windmills. So they have to somehow meet their portfolio standards by proxy. And they do that by co-investing in other people's solar systems. So what does that mean? Right now, Eversource has the last item on anyone, whether it's residential, commercial, or municipal electric bill, you spend about 3 cents on every bill as a public benefit charge. And that raises about $300 million a year for Eversource that they use to invest in various programs. You mentioned lighting, LED lighting upgrades, or home weatherization, or in this case, a solar system. And then now we're talking about how do we get access to that money to help co-fund your project? Well, they do it based on it's a performance-based system. So they're going to put on a 2-way meter, which means that if we ever over-generate at that building at any point in time, we're pushing electrons back to the grid and the meter reverses. And then they're going to put on a second meter called a REC meter. And they're going to measure the energy produced by the solar system and pay you for it. And they pay you for it, and the agreement that represents that long-term payment metrics is called a tariff agreement. And in this case, it's a 15-year agreement. So we bid into this auction in the case of the mid-size systems, like the size you could fit on and that would be enough to power the school. That's a mid-size system, part of the medium and large REC auction. And they make it complicated. It's a Dutch auction, considered a reverse auction. So they have a pool of money, and this is the last pool of money this month that's available. The REC is, they're taking bids until June 14, and it'll be the last time. So they have a pool of money to distribute to all the applicants. And those that bid in for the lowest amount are most likely to receive the award. Those that bid in for a high amount, it's like asking for a college scholarship, but if you need 95% scholarship, those are going to be the last to be called. So we want to sort of find a sweet spot between asking for enough money that actually moves the needle and helps the project economics, but we don't want to ask for too much money based on historical awards that would be unlikely to be chosen and we're left with nothing. So the cut to the chase, the amount of money that's been made available every year, we're into year 10 of what was a 6-year program. So we're kind of on fumes. And the last couple of years, the legislature has been trying to figure out a replacement, but just by virtue of the fact that they couldn't agree on a replacement solar plan, they've kept this program alive, but now we're at the end of the runway. So it used to be that we could secure RECs worth about $100 a megawatt hour, or 3 years ago, we were getting RECs worth $125 a megawatt hour. But if I look at the median price, and this was in my memo to you, the median awarded price has been dropping down from into the hundreds down into the 80s. And based on a conservative approach, I think we should bid for about $74, a $74 REC. Now, what does that really mean to you? That means that if we won a $74 REC, which is a 15-year agreement, that's $74 per megawatt hour, or put another way, it's 7.4 cents per kilowatt hour. The school, I looked at the historical use of electricity over the last few years at Ashford School, and I'm sort of discounting last year, 2020, as a COVID year, unusual for various reasons, and really taking as my base case 2019. So in 2019, you used about 350,000 kilowatt hours, 352,000 kilowatt hours, and it cost you about $62,000 worth of electricity. So let's assume that we win this ZREC, and they put on this ZREC meter, and they measure how much solar is produced. And we intend to re-roof, you intend to re-roof and build a solar system big enough to power that school. That $74 bid that I'm suggesting we make, times the amount of energy this system is projected to generate, is worth about, on a low end, $27,000 a year, every year for 15 years. And it can be worth more if it generates more. So at a base case of $74 ZREC bid at $27,000 a year for 15 years, that's a agreement worth $390,000. That's the cash value, and that's the value of this REC that we're proposing. Now, we will probably enter into a third-party agreement where an investor will own and maintain that solar system for you, very much like a vending machine, where we would tell them where we want it, what we want, what we want it to look like, but they maintain it and they invest in it, and you agree to buy the power that comes out of it at a pre-negotiated discounted rate. So we'll take this REC agreement and we'll pledge it to the investor as one of the forms of revenue that they can rely on. The counterparty can rely on when signing a power purchase agreement. And then they'll end up charging you the difference between what the RECs are worth and what they need to meet is their minimum financial requirement or their hurdle rate. The net result is, I think conservatively, we can look to, you've got enough roof area relative to your electrical usage, and the equipment, the inverters have become so efficient recently that I think we can provide all of the electricity the school needs through clean, renewable energy resources, through a roof-mounted solar system that would be owned and maintained by the investor. And you would, in turn, receive a discount to your electric bill, which I'm hoping will be approximately 50%, or a savings that is very similar to the value of the RECs, somewhere between $27,000 and $30,000 a year net savings from having gone through all of this complexity. So that's kind of where we are at a high level. What I did share with you in the report is a pie chart that shows, interestingly, about 36% of what you spend on electricity is in demand charges. So utilities have gotten very clever, and they're starting to move away from just making money and charging you based on the kilowatt hour, but they also charge you based on the fluctuations. So they charge you differently based on how you use that energy. So for example, if you're charging $1 for a gallon of water and two people fill up a bucket, but one person lets the spigot drip and you charge them a gallon, the other person fills it up real quick and then stops and then fills it up real quick, that person gets charged a whole lot more. They get charged demand charges, even though it was the same total number of kilowatt hours. And a lot of this happens at school. So we look at behavioral change and how we can train maintenance staff and equipment to mitigate demand charges. For example, fire drills. We've looked at when there's a fire drill in a school and they have to shut off the equipment and the chiller and the lights, and the kids come back in and then they flipped all the switches on. There's this huge surge. Those fire drills typically happen, like they test the systems in September, and that's when the chillers and the lighting is on. The school experiences this demand charge. It's a peak penalty, and it takes 1 year. You wait 12 electric bills till they reset that. So we're starting to introduce demand management systems or soft start motors, or things, technologies that would help. A building management system we would look to implement in the school so that it can help modulate the chillers and the big electric loads to avoid these peak charges. But that's really the second step. What I'm really here before you tonight is I wanted to share with you the memo, let you know that my intent is, as your representative, as the owner's agent in this matter, would be to submit a bid to Eversource. And I'd like to submit a bid for the maximum size medium system. You don't have to act on all of it. You will, if and when you're awarded a bid, you'll have to post the surety payment of a couple $1,000s. It is held by Eversource, and it's returned to you when you install the solar system. We'll have about 18 months to install the solar system before that 15-year credit agreement starts to lose value on a monthly basis. Think of it like a new 15-year annuity. But if you don't push the button on it within, by 18 months, you start to lose a month on the back end every month that goes by.
So Mark, I think Bill has a question. Bill, do you have your hand up for a question?
No,
Oh,
I scratched my head.
I can see your the hand on your
Oh,
thing. I'm sorry to interrupt, Mark.
Sure.
I do have a quick question though. What happens after 15 years?
Well, so you'll have a solar system. So we were entering, it was the convention to enter into 20-year power purchase agreements. But as the quality control got better on panels and the companies, so the three major pieces, there's the solar panel, there's the rack that holds it to the roof, and the inverter that converts the energy from direct to the alternating current that we use in our homes and our buildings, that pulsating current. All that equipment is now available with warranties that go out to 25 years. So the investors are now signing 25-year PPAs, okay? But the credits run out in year 15.
Okay.
And actually, the investor is probably an unintended consequence of last year's tax bill. But the investors, well, crazy things happen in the world of solar. While we were, the previous administration was taxing, there was a 30% tariff on incoming solar panels, but then there's also a 26% tax credit. So we were taxing it and then we were crediting it back and forth. Anyway, within the first 5 years, the investor has written off the equipment. They've gotten a full 100% tax write-off on it. And then after 15 years, so the investors are really made whole. And so they typically, we enter into a fixed price with the off taker or the counterparty, the host. So that ZREC burns off in 15 years, but in the first 5 years, the investor's written off the system and they've locked a price with you for 25 years. So that's all that's all taken into account. But even if that REC expires in year 15 and there's nothing to replace it, your cost of power should not change for 25 years. It'll be fixed.
Thank you. Did you have anything else you wanted to go over in the presentation? Mark?
Oh, no, me? No, this is just, so my plan is, and you've done this before, or you've had it done to you before with other solar systems, I'm sure, but this is going to be a medium one. So there's a lot of meat on this bone. It's an important application. Like I said, even if we're asking for just a $74 REC, which I think is like slightly below the median that we're tracking. So I feel very confident you would get that award. It'll be worth $27,000 a year times 15 years for just the total value of just under 400,000. You may choose to build that solar system, pay cash for it, bond it, and keep the RECs. And keep all the energy it produces. And we'll run those numbers for you. Some towns have made that decision as well, versus a shared savings where a third party owns the equipment and charges you a little bit versus you pay. But first step is we'll secure these RECs, okay? And I'll fill out the application on your behalf. I want you to concur within the next couple of weeks or tonight with this number. I'm targeting approximately $74. And then I'll make the application, and then we'll hear back from Eversource. And once we secure that, then I will model the savings for you based on your electric bill, and work with you on your roof plan and make sure we develop a package of equipment that doesn't invalidate your potential new roof. And we can look at white roof or solar systems. We're starting to bring panels off of the roof, so they're actually bifacial. In some cases, we're getting not only sun hitting the upper panel, but if we do a white roof and we raise the panels, there's a little bit of reflectivity. So we get a little 10, 20% boost. Those are called bifacial. But we'll look at all of that as a next step and enter in, and then we'll develop the RFP for you. But right now, I'm just focusing on getting this application.
Understood. And there's a time.
Catherine?
Yes, Bill.
I'm curious, Jim, did you want to give us any input on what you've heard this presentation from Mark?
Well, we did select Mark after, looking at a couple of other companies and what they had to offer. So I think my advice to the Board of Selectmen is, we've gotten somebody on board who is very competent. And my suggestion would be to follow his recommendation.
Thanks.
How
Mark, I do have a quick question. The overall system, what is the life expectancy on these panels and the whole system in general?
Right. Well, that's a good question. And to some degree, it's like when should I buy an iPhone? When should I buy the cell phone? And they're going to let you out of your lease early if significantly better technology comes around. So I will answer your question, but I want you to say that if you end up in a power purchase agreement, okay, with a third-party investor, and we will help you develop that package and negotiate those terms. It's the risk of malfunction or obsolescence is now on the investor. We've got a credit-worthy counterparty that's agreed to sell you cheap power, and what I do, and we've done it half a dozen times with other municipalities, is we have a performance guarantee. So while we're going to specify tier 1 rated inverters and panels and racks, they own and maintain that equipment. If it fails for any reason, they have to make you whole on the anticipated savings. Okay. So it's at their risk that their equipment is faulty. I just want to mention that. But 25
So
years,
if they don't meet the performance mark, they make up the difference?
yes. A slight nuance to that is that we now have agreed to weather normalize that. And so we have standards for that. They're going to say, well, the sun never shined that year, so give me a break. So we have Department of Energy data we use as a baseline. But and they have a cure period. They have 60 days to make up for it and so forth. But the short of it is that we now enter into, we pledge the ZREC agreement that I told you is worth over the term $390,000. In return, they're required to deliver this low-cost power to us. And in the event it fails, for the inverters are not properly maintained or whatever, they have to make you whole via a production guarantee.
I know we installed solar panels on several of our town buildings over the past, I'd say 5 or 6 years. And the savings never really lived up to the expectations. I'm hoping this isn't the case with our facility. And from what you're talking about of putting in a performance guarantee or whatever, I think that probably helps that scenario.
I'd be happy to, I must say it's been a pleasure. Christine has been, helping us pull all this data together, and I'd be delighted to look. I'm anxious to come up and look, and at no charge, happy to look at any of your old previous agreements and see if they're, just do a little true up. I mean,
Excellent.
happy to contribute a couple hours and just do a little measurement verification to see. Early on, people were excited about programs. The Connecticut Green Bank was making these investments, and there was very little measurement verification or commissioning going on. And there are systems with bad inverters and bad panels, and it's worth putting eyes on it and fixing it. Just like light bulbs that can go bad on a Christmas tree,
Yeah. Well, I know probably the biggest project that that I'm aware of in town, and I think we've got a couple of members of the Ashford Housing Authority, was our housing authority, and with the elderly housing we have in town. I haven't heard lately how that's performing, but I'd also heard through the grapevine that had not lived up to expectations. So if you have the time and the energy to do that, Catherine, I think we ought to take Mark up on that. I'd love you to be able to go back and revisit. Maybe you can add some advice for what we should do.
We were actually, I was talking with Michael Gardner, and we were actually trying to figure out how to make sure we could get it measured so we can see what we're really getting out of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
one of the things the technology, so we like to be involved in the continuum of the project, so we can develop a case study with you and hopefully develop a long-term relationship where we're able to prove out the savings. So one of the things we ask for on these agreements, and this will be part of the RFP, we'll specify inverters and we'll require a data card that the host and the consultants can have access to. And we don't just want total production. That's not as helpful to me. I want to see a panel layout. And we can request this. It's just a matter of specifying it as the software
In the RFP.
Yeah, and then you'll actually see, and typically the contractors don't want you to see all this information, but it's just like a diagnostic report when you take your car and they can tell you one of your cylinders is not firing. We'll actually get a layout and we'll see if we got any bad panels. And we'll put that into their maintenance obligation. So.
Excellent.
Jessica, did you have a question?
Oh, I just wanted to say, if possible, if I could be a part of that, with the review, I would be very interested in knowing.
Very good.
For housing.
Would I just reach out to you, Mark, on that?
Yes,
or?
please.
Great, thank you.
Let me know who to respond and how to cooperate. I'm really excited about it. I'm particularly excited because of the fact you're doing a new roof, and it does sound like you're looking at a deep energy retrofit for that building. So a lot's happened. COVID made people think about air quality, and some technology called energy recovery ventilators, which has been code, but is now being also incentivized by Eversource. But what all of this happens, fresh air in buildings and in indoor air quality, we've been installing ionization, bipolar ionization technologies and things that kill viruses, enhance filters, reduce pollen, help curb asthma and things like that. So make all this air quality stuff, it all takes electricity. And then you probably heard about mini splits or electric heat pumps. Let's decarbonize, let's get away from stored oil tanks that can leak and drive up insurance costs and have maintenance requirements. As we start to electrify buildings, it's all the more pressure to make sure our solar systems are robust and not just the nice to have, but are really our principal energy.
Okay,
So, this is the starting point.
all right. So,
Catherine, if it's appropriate, I'll make a motion that the Board of Selectmen support the $74 REC that Mark is recommending.
yeah. Do I have a second to that? Roger?
Yep, I second.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstain, motion passes. Thank you very much, Mark. Jim,
Thanks,
thank you
Mark.
for all you're doing to help us keep going with this. So nice work.
Thank you.
You
Thank
bet. Glad to do
All
it.
right. I'm going to move us along here.
Also,
We have 2 items on here next, which are the executive sessions. I'd like to have somebody make a motion to move them down to the just before adjournment.
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Motion passes. Those are moved. Set the date for a special town meeting to adopt the new town code. Our town clerk suggests Monday, June 7th, 2021 at 7 p.m. I anticipate in all likelihood that will be a Zoom meeting, just so you know. Just because of what's going on. Hi, Sherry. Would you agree at this point? Considering what they came out with, they have not forced the in-person meetings at this point.
Are you asking me?
Yes, I'm asking you. What's an opinion?
Yes, I think it would be a Zoom meeting. I think it could potentially be very short.
Good.
Yeah.
Actually, we were thinking of including it in the agenda because that's the night of a regular selectmen's meeting.
Can
So
we
we
do
can
that?
make it the second item on the agenda.
Can we do that, Sherry?
I think you have to have it follow your meeting. You have to have your meeting and then close it and then have the special town meeting.
That's
We've-
how I think we've done it in the past.
We've previously done it in the past, just as part of the selectmen's meeting agenda.
Okay, I think I'd have to take a look at some past examples of that. We don't do this very often. It's a single item.
Well, and when
Instead of that, we can schedule it for 6:45 and then start the selectmen's meeting at 7.
if we were to do it at 6:45, when we go to do this, do we have to vet the people that are voting in this? It's a
This
special,
makes me,
it's a special town meeting. So a special town meeting, to me, it's a special town meeting. It's not necessarily an agenda item on the.
do you remember the one we did at the gazebo?
Yes.
The Boy Scouts came. That's what this would be like.
It's a standalone meeting.
Yeah.
And it would be of that duration too, probably. maybe
Right,
shorter.
right.
Catherine, I got a question.
Yes.
Sherry,
Mhm.
would there be a major negative impact if we postpone this a couple of weeks?
You have a timeline you have to.
I
meet,
have,
Sherry.
there's a very definite timeline that
That's what
has,
I'm asking.
what, excuse me?
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
Yes. The timeline actually has been built out very carefully. So what we did was, we had inland wetlands approve their piece of it. We had planning and zoning approve their piece of it. And now the town approves the ordinance piece, but as an overall adoption. And what I did was I worked up a 2-page article for the Citizen that explains to people what codification means, so they can understand that it may be a word they don't understand. And so I want to make sure that they don't feel that there's anything happening that is because we haven't, this has been something that's been done behind the scenes and we haven't talked about it a lot publicly.
That's what I'm worried about, and that's why I was concerned to make sure the perception isn't that we're trying to rush into this and do this too quickly.
This is no rush. This has been vetted by Halloran and Sage, by both of the attorneys there, and it's also going to go through the Connecticut State Attorney General after we do the adoption. So it's been fully prepared by general code. This is exactly what they do. And then it's been passed to the appropriate people at our end to make sure that it has been done. We don't have any problems with this. So it's been 2 years in the making, and this is just the final step. All the work's been done. We just simply have to accept it and say, yes, thank you very much. This is fantastic. So I'm not going to bother showing you the screens, but this is the page, one of the pages for the Citizen. And then there's a graphic to show them what it used to look like this, and what it's going to look like now, like that. So they can see that this is a big step forward. It did not cost them money. It cost the state library,
and it didn't lose
grant money,
and it didn't lose anything in translation, so to speak, when we do codification.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I'm aware we've been talking about this a couple of years, and I know you've been working on it.
Yeah.
I was talking about a general perception of the general public, and if we can lay that out in that article you're doing, I think that will help to that.
Absolutely. That's why I felt that they needed to have it. I mean, it's, it's a page long. It's not like an advertisement. You have to read it, just like, any article that we're talking about something serious. Yeah. So, but do you have any specific questions, Bill?
No, I think I've put forward the questions I had.
Okay.
I mean, I'm aware of just about everything that you've addressed here, and that's addressed in the code. But I don't know how comfortable the general public is going to feel. We've been up close to it, they have not.
That that is exactly it, right? It's kind of new to us because it's some people might think of it as being fancy, right? Fancy, but what I put in the article too is it's kind of a no-brainer. There's general code handles 76 towns, and that includes a lot of the little towns around us and the big towns around us. And then there's other companies too. I mean, this is just something that you do. It makes sure that you don't have any problems where you've got conflicts with any of the state statutes or your own legislation. And it kind of keeps the town out of the fire. So it protects us legally, and it makes everybody's work so much easier. People can go online and they can search things themselves. We can put packages together in the land use office and email them to people. So it's just familiarizing people with what the concept is. So
could you email maybe Roger and myself that article you showed us?
Yeah, I just finished it late this afternoon, so nobody's
It's
actually
the
seen it.
preview of what will go into the Citizen. You're previewing what she's going to put into the Citizen. That's what that article is. Yep.
Nice look at it.
Sure, absolutely.
Great. Okay, as far as setting the date for this, I think we do have a little bit of a question about whether it becomes an agenda item on the selectmen's meeting or whether it's its own standalone meeting. So if we were to, we have the selectmen's meeting that typically starts at 7. If we were to do this at 6:30, would that, as its own thing, would that clear it up? Or do you really want it at 7? That's fine. And we can
Nope.
make the,
No, mm-mm. I don't care. The time doesn't matter. We just need to make sure we follow the right procedure.
okay. Selectman, would you be comfortable with us setting the date and then working with Sherry and with Chris on the time for the logistics between the selectmen's meeting and this meeting, making sure we're clear about whether or not it's an agenda item in our meeting or if it's its own standalone meeting? Would you be comfortable with that?
I'm good with that.
I don't have an issue with that, Catherine. I'll make the motion to go with that date
Yeah,
and authorize you as first selectman to coordinate with the town clerk, the timing of it.
very good. Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next thing on the item is discuss proposed Trimco house project. I have not heard from Mr. Hurd on this, so we have nothing to,
That sounds familiar.
yeah, and I'm not too happy about it. I will call him again. I didn't get a chance to today. Okay. Worst case scenario is we can encumber the monies for this if we go past June 30th in terms of him doing this. Tuesday,
Catherine, I
yeah.
didn't see within your agenda, but Jeff and I talked about this prior to the meeting about the potential for a blight ordinance.
No, we don't have that on the agenda. That was just something that when we were talking about a noise ordinance during our last meeting, we also mentioned that we would want to be looking into a blight ordinance. We just don't have the blight ordinance on this agenda because I think that's something where we're going to need to maybe get even more information. And I didn't want to tie up this meeting with that. We're really looking at the priority was the noise ordinance because of what these people are experiencing right now.
I would suggest that the work on the blight ordinance probably would fall primarily within planning and zoning. And I
Yeah.
think, Jeff, you can weigh in with me on that.
That's, I think there's a yes and a no to that part of it. I think the blight thing can be a separate ordinance, but there's some things within your ordinances for planning and zoning that would apply or could be beefed up a little bit.
I
But
think, Catherine,
that's another discussion, not for this one.
Yeah, Catherine, I mean, what I think, because we talked about the noise, we talked about a blight ordinance, we also talked about, guns going off and coming up with some sort of a policy on that, but I can see perhaps even a special meeting and invite Dick and Jeff and the Board of Selectmen just to have a general discussion, but I think that's going to have to be in depth, and we should probably set up some sort of a special meeting to do that.
Will do. Okay.
Yeah,
If I could move us on.
Catherine, I only bring that up because I'll ring off after that. You
Okay,
guys,
very good. Thank you very much for your help. Okay, the next one is choose the date for the next AFSCME negotiation. And I believe our date is June 9th at 5:30 that we are looking at. Chris, would you concur?
Yeah, wait a second. June 9th, it's a Wednesday?
Yes, at 5:30. Okay, and prior to that, you will receive what I've documented up. I'm not finished documenting it up yet. In terms of not only, well, you'll receive documentation from me. I'm not going to get into that. Okay, moving down, if that's okay with you, we're going to move down to new business, boards, commissions, committee appointments. Inland
Nothing.
Wetlands and Water Courses, alternate vacancy created by the elevation of Cheryl Chase to regular member status. Can be a D, an R, or a U. I don't believe we have anyone yet, right, Chris?
We have nobody for any of them.
Okay, so moving right through these, not having anybody. Going down to tax refunds.
We don't have any of those either.
Very good. Okay, and then approve extension of Ashford Memorial Park mowing contract for the 2021 21 and 2022 season. I'd like to move us forward on that.
Roger, you want to make that motion?
Yeah, I'll make it that motion.
Very good.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. Ashford Housing Authority to discuss pilot. Finally, Jessica. Thank you for
Finally,
saying
no.
everything else.
No, that was fun. I was interested in hearing about the solar, so that was
Yeah.
good. But thank you
Okay.
for having us tonight. I appreciate it. Did everyone have a chance to read? I sent along just a brief memo on what our situation is and why we're asking for an abatement.
I did.
Oh, okay, you got it.
Thank you. So this is basically like what we had happen last year, if I understand correctly.
Yes, last year we also did not pay the pilot. You know, as it's become increasingly more difficult, the cost of services and materials and things as such do increase by quite a bit each year. And anytime we have unexpected repairs, maintenance, it really does impact our budget. This year is no exception. We've had our handfuls of unexpected large repairs. And so we're really in a tight spot for the windows. I do have two possible options, like I did explain. As of right now, though, I still am unsure. I'm waiting to hear back from Eversource and Megan, hopefully this week. If Eversource says yes, I believe that the additional incentives will cover the cost that we need to finish the project. But again, I'm just not sure. It's been a very long time. We started this back in 2019. So
Yeah.
given that it's been almost 2 years, Eversource is just like re-looking at everything and is going to make a determination on that. So, you know,
Okay.
so, but either way, we are really low on funds, and this would definitely, it would, you know, immensely help us out for this year.
Catherine,
Yes, sir.
if I could just make a couple of comments. I know last year you came to us and asked for 2 years, and we said 1 year. I personally have no objections to authorizing this for another year, based on if you don't get the Eversource reimbursement.
Okay.
But Catherine and Roger will probably agree with me. Next year is probably going to be a totally other animal.
Okay.
We've got an extremely tough year anticipated for next year.
Okay.
Just to kind of give you a heads up on that.
Yep, that's fine. And, you know, and we are working on long-term strategies on becoming more financially independent and not depending on the subsidies that the state gives us and other, you know, we want to be financially independent. We want to have enough revenue to cover all of our expenses, including the pilot, including enough for maintenance. So we are working on that, and we're creating a strategic plan, and we do have several you know, goals and objectives that will really help us, you know, accomplish that. So then, yes, we will not be coming to you every year.
Have you heard anything from the state folks about whether there's going to be an influx or a portion of the stimulus money coming in to relieve? Because I know you're not the only housing authority in the state that's
Right.
experiencing these problems. Have you got any indication of relief on the way, or?
So the only relief I'm seeing, the Department of Housing is communicating is rental assistance for those in need due to COVID. I haven't seen or heard anything else in any kind of any other rental subsidies. Our one downfall is we only have the one subsidies. It's the elderly rental that's closed. So, anybody who's still in that program, we do receive those funds, but that group is getting smaller and smaller, and it's impacting our tenants more and more each year. So we really need to figure out how to fix that problem as well. But no, unfortunately, I get all the emails and stuff, and it's just, they're very focused on rental assistance due to COVID, due to loss of job or anything like that. It's all very COVID, related right now. So
Jessica, probably on a totally other subject, but all 32 units qualify as the definition of low-income housing?
yes,
Okay.
yes, it
Called
does.
affordable housing, right?
However, though, right now, the way it's set up is anybody who applies, they have to have a certain amount of income. So there's almost like a minimum requirement now, because we can't offer any subsidies.
Yeah.
So our base rent is going to $560. So their income has to be high enough so that that $560 is only 30% of what they earn per month. So, the income level for people who are eligible, it continues to increase. And so we're more moderate income. I really wouldn't say we're a low income housing.
Well, I know you and I had discussions last year about that being problematic for some of the people that need it the most.
Right. I mean, right now we have 8 tenants who are paying more than 30% of their income to rent. And our rent is, right now it's $540.
Now, were they grandfathered, Jessica, or?
So the ones that are in the program are the one, yes, they've been in the program
So they were
prior to
grandfathered.
2009 when it closed. Yeah, so anybody who comes out of that, it eventually, long-term, we will not, as far as I can see, we're not going to be getting any subsidies as soon as these tenants, leave. Because we don't, it's becoming smaller by a lot. So.
Okay, so where are we with this?
Are you looking for a motion, Catherine, or?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
I will make a motion to waive the pilot for this year, with the only contingency that if the money comes through from Eversource, that we will balance out.
Yep. Thank you.
Second that.
Thank you, Roger. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for what you folks do.
Yes,
Thank
Dennis,
you. Thank
as
you
well.
both.
Okay, we are now going to be moving into executive sessions. We're going to have one after the other. The first one, and what we'll do is we're going to drop everybody except our board members because of the executive sessions, except for Chris Abakoff, who I think should come into both of these sessions. So the first one is executive session to discuss pending and potential litigation and to protect the town's collective rights and interests related
Do we
to.
have to conform with Mike or anything, or is everybody off mic?
Paul Varga will be coming off.
Yep.
Okay, but I can certainly read what the executive session is. Relating to the lots that comprise are known as the Cattle Rock properties in both the towns of Ashford and Wellington pursuant to CGS 1-210B4. So Paul, I need you to drop off. Mike, can you drop Paul for us?
Yep.
Thank you. Where's, we got Chris, good.
And these are the last two items, right? Because if I remove him, he may have
Yes.
trouble getting back
Yes,
in.
that's the only reason I'm asking.
Okay. All right,
Very
so
good.
I'm
Thank
going
you.
to pause the recording now.
Very good. And can we entertain a
Okay, so-
motion?
All right, so you have to vote on
You have to let
accepting.
Mike know we're out of executive session.
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
All right,
Mike,
Yep, I just started the recording.
thank you. All right, now that we're out of executive session, Chris, you want to talk about what we want to vote on here?
you have to vote for the proposed settlement fee for the town. You have to vote to approve that fee of $1694.68.
Yes.
I will make a motion to approve the recommended settlement from council
Yeah,
in the amount of 1664.68. 1694.60. I'm sorry, I'm getting punchy here.
That's right.
I'll second that.
any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you very much. And I believe this concludes our business for tonight. Thank you. It was a 8:46. I think we're not doing too badly considering how much was on that agenda.
No, not for an agenda as big as this one was.
Thank you. Chris, I want to give you special thanks for putting together these packages the way you did. It was really great to have everything all organized
Yeah,
in
it was-
sequence. Very
You're
helpful.
kind. Thanks, Chris.
You're so welcome.
There we go. Good night, folks. Thank you.
Is
Good
that
night.
Bill?
That's me again.
Devil. Motion to adjourn, somebody?
So moved.
Second?
Hold on a second.
Oh,
Second.
Good night, folks.
good
All in
night.
favor? Aye, we're out of here. Thank you.
Hold on 1 second, Fernando.
Good night. Thanks, Mike. Thanks,
Good night.
Chris.
All right. Thank you, Mike.